Everyone dreams about living an uncommon life, but how we define that dream is very different for each of us. And for most, it's a lifelong pursuit. Welcome to the Uncommon Life Project podcast. We're going to introduce you to people who are living that life or enjoying the journey to get there. We're going to also give you some tools, tricks, and tips for starting or accelerating your own efforts to live an uncommon life, a life worth celebrating and savoring. Please welcome your hosts, Brian Dewhurst and Philip Ramsey.
Hello and welcome everybody to another episode of the Uncommon Life Project, where I'm your host, Philip Ramsey.
And I'm Brian Dewhurst.
Gosh, it feels good to hear your voice. And we have got another episode for you. Cannot wait to get, I'd say, kindred spirit on the show. Let's do the bio and then let's jump into it. But thanks for tuning in. Brian, you always got the best bios.
I'm going to do my best because she's got a long one and I'm going to try to shorten it, but she's accomplished a lot and I want to do it justice. So we have the one and only Jody Steinhauer in our studio today. Well, over Zoom, really, let's be honest. She has mobilized her award-winning discount wholesale and promotional products company to revolutionize the business landscape. She is a Canadian female entrepreneur, so across the border. And she's used that network and resource to leverage buying power to aid every company, and not only for-profit agencies, but also charities as well. She's got a multi-decade business, a multi-decade charity, and we're going to get into her social enterprise kits for a cause. So with that, we welcome to the show, Jody Steinhauer.
Hi,
welcome,
everybody.
Jody. Thank you so much. Man, it's great to see you. I want to first pull back and just say, Brian and I, for the people who have never listened to this and probably are followers and avid advocates for Jody, Brian and I are financial advisors at heart, ones that are uncommon, and we really try to divest and I would say invest in our clients' passions. And so the reason why we got hooked up with Jody is she is passionate. If you know anything about her, she loves what she does. And that couldn't be more exciting for Brian and I. When we sit down with a new advisor or a new client, our first and foremost thing is try to figure out what they're passionate about. And when we get this thing, it sounds weird, but it's usually an hour and a half to 2 hours long because the client starts talking and getting excited about what they want their future to look like. It feels like maybe 15 minutes to the client because all they're doing is getting excited. But then our job is to then take their finances and help them step into that passion in a wise way. So that's us at Uncommon Wealth Partners. That is our company. We started this podcast, the Uncommon Life Project, because we wanted to interview people just like Jody who are dominating in life. So Jody, how did you get to where you're at? Because it's kind of interesting that we're shooting this on Black Friday right after Thanksgiving. And so it's shopping and bargain shopping. And this is like you. So tell us how you got to where you're at.
Yeah, well, thank you. And I love that, dominating. And that sounds wonderful. My name in Canada is AKA Bargain Jody. So I love that we're doing this on Black Friday. But, I've always been brought up to love what you do, figure out what your passion is, and don't listen to anybody else. And that's a really lonely road for a lot of people. Oh. And
not only is it a lonely road, not a lot of people get that advice. Who was giving you that advice, and how did you get that mindset?
It's interesting. My father was very much kind of the black sheep in a family of very, very accomplished doctors. And my grandfather was the superintendent of education in Canada. And he kind of went off the grid and became like an accountant by correspondence, which back then just wasn't being done. And he just said, I don't really care what you do, just do it, love what you do, and you'll do it well. And that was, again, very, very, very rare. So I went to high school, and in Canada, back then, you had to go to grade 13. But if you wanted to go to college, and in Canada, grade 13 is university, you could go to college, which was kind of like, technically trade school, if you want to call, and you could leave at grade 12. So I graduated with a 97 average and checked out and went to fashion school, which was kind of looked upon as my accomplished family as being a loser. And I went to I got into FIT in New York, and I was very visionary and thinking like, okay, I'm going to love what I do. I love fashion. I'm really great at sales. I'm going to do this, but I might as well go to school in the country where I see myself living and building my network. So I wasn't going to be in New York. So I chose the next best thing to the best school in Canada. I went through, I graduated the top student. And when I got out of school, now remember, all my friends were only in first year university, right? I had already graduated, way ahead of them. And I remember taking that first job. And it was a very, very, when you graduate number one, the great thing is the school lines up 5 jobs for you and you get to pick what you want to do. So I worked for the visionary of a company in the States I know has been called Lululemon, which is like the hot, yoga.
Oh, yeah.
And I worked for him for a year or two. But very quickly, I learned that my morals and values, which are really, really important to me, did not align with, let's just say, some of the unscrupulous things that were going on in that business. And if the Me Too movement was going on, let me just say, I would be in the news. Okay. Wow. So I left. And at that time, I was 20 years old, and I was promoted. I was making $50K a year, which was big money back then.
Right. Yeah.
And I left because I was promoted. And I just said, he's like, what are you talking about? You're my rock star. And I said, we're not on the same page, dude. Like, right. I got to find you. Like, I love what I do, but it's not in alignment with mentorship. So I went to another company.
Which is huge. I just want to start, like, the golden handcuffs is real. And like what he was saying is like, how are you going to get out of the golden handcuffs? Like, this is amazing.
Right. And that's totally what it is. And and luckily I had enough confidence to say, like, I'm not, like, I think that first 5-10 years when you're out of school, and I have 5 kids, so I'm in that point now where I'm advising them now. I don't give a shit what you do. Just love it. Right. Love it.
It's just, life is too short. You spend too much time in work to not love it.
And back then it was that whole, like, go work for the big department store, go work for the big company, all of that. I'm like, hell no. Right. So then I went to work in New York City for Guess Jeans.
Oh, right? Yeah.
And all of the girls, I'm a great salesperson because I'm really authentic. And I'll tell a buyer at Macy's, like, I'm supposed to sell you these jeans, but they fit like shit. So buy these ones. So the buyers loved me because I was honest. The companies didn't love me as much. I sold a lot of stuff, but they wanted me to push stuff that wasn't moving. And I said, it's my name on the line. Right.
Good for you. Right.
So I became their top salesperson in a matter of months. And the other, let's just say, women didn't like me too much and stole my passport and put sugar in my purse.
Wow.
Really, really nice things. So I thought, like, this was, again, not aligned with who I am. I want to be around people who support my efforts and my capacity to grow and do and make difference. So came back to Canada and took this crazy job. I thought, I'm done. Took this crazy job with a discount company. Back then there was no discount. There was no dollar stores. There were no TJ Maxx. There were no Winners, guys like that. And I took this job. The ad said, we're looking for a person to purchase school supplies for a private school. I thought, great, I'm the best discount shopper around. I'm not going to deal with attitude from all these other people. Let me try it. And the headhunter looked at my resume. Back then, we actually met with people. We didn't just do it over calls. Yep. And he looked at my resume. He said, how old are you? And I told him. And he said, okay, this is ridiculous, all you've done at 21, 22 years old. He said, I want you to meet somebody right away. I think I've got the perfect role for you. And I'll never forget this. I went in his car with him and drove to a dilapidated warehouse a half an hour away, which I still can't believe I did. And I met this guy and he's like, oh, wow, she'll do. And I started the next day and I was in the absolute opposite end of the spectrum. I was going, I went from high fashion to like low fashion. And my first day, I'll never forget, my dad said, how was it? I said, I sold 500 dozen underwear. Now imagine when you're selling like designer, clothing for $200 a pop wholesale, someone's buying 3 pairs per store, right?
Right.
So he says, 500 dozen, that's incredible. Like, how much was it? I said, it doesn't matter. 500 dozen. It was unbelievable.
I can do it. Right.
And he kept asking me, I go, Dad, like the whole sale was $600. It doesn't matter.
Right.
So he said, you found your niche. You're all about the action and the transaction. And I said, yep. And we didn't have internet. We didn't have websites. I mean, this was old school selling. This was pick up, go to the local gas station, find the pages, in the telephone booth, rip them out, and there's your call list, right?
Jeez.
For the next week. And I would be traveling all over. I made friends with a librarian. And every weekend I would go down to the library with my handful of dimes and say, okay, this week I think I'm going to go after children's wear stores in, Western Canada. And I would make friends with her. I'd bring her coffee and she would pull out all the directories that were available. And again, there were my photocopied call lists. So I was like hardcore call people up. But then my story was really different, right? It was authentic.
Right,
it was like, hey, I don't know you, but I've heard about your store.
Yep.
And can you tell me a little bit about what you carry? How big's your store? I call it the Helen Keller sales pitch. Get someone to tell you what it looks like. And then I authentically would only recommend things that I thought would really do well if I owned that store. But because I had expertise in retail, I would also offer them how to merchandise it, how to lay it out, how to price it, how to sell 2-4s, how to do gift with purchases. So they loved me because it was such a, they only wanted to buy stuff, but I gave them so much more value than they ever asked for. So they're my customers for life.
Yeah.
So that's kind of, I came at that. I would not travel. I did not do trade shows because I was also an efficiency freak.
Didn't need to.
So if I could sit on the phone and talk to people for X amount of hours a day and through all the different time zones, right? So I could be on the phone 15 hours a day and it worked. And I loved it. Like I absolutely loved it.
But this wasn't your own company yet, correct?
No, I was working for somebody else.
Right.
And
but I 22, you said?
Yeah, I was like 22, but my culture, how I've been brought up was whatever you do it like it's your own and own it, right? So he ended up having chains of stores. I ran his wholesale division. I made him millions of dollars. And then he made an error. He made a bad acquisition, buying out an old partner for ego. And he said to me, I got a problem. I said, I told you not to touch it. The legal fees are going to kill you. And he said, I'm bankrupting the company, but I'm setting you up next door tomorrow. And I'm going to give you 10% of the profits. So I said, cool. But guess what? There was no staff, nothing. It was going to be me. And I said, well, listen, thank you very much. But I think I'm going to do it on my own because I am the company.
Thank you. Good.
And I had no husband and no mortgage and no children. What did I have to lose, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we remained friends. And I said, I'll help you through this bankruptcy. I'll do whatever you need to do. And I worked with receivers. And then he did something really important. He screwed me. He screwed me out of the money he owed me. And I said to him, I don't call lawyers. I don't get mad.
Right. I
get even. So he needed me to ship a shipment for across Canada for back to school, which a national department store had bought. I told the buyer the truth. She said, don't worry, we'll get him. We're going to reroute it backwards across the country. And he's going to get fined $5,000 for every store that he gets shipped wrong.
Oh, wow.
And ever since then, that was the end of that relationship, which is really dumb. Like I always say to people, don't ever burn bridges. It's how you exit in life. It's not how you enter.
Right.
So I started my own company, Bargains, the next day. I was always doing it. And the entire, clothing community, which back then was based mostly in Montreal, Winnipeg, and Toronto, heard the news. I had no idea how, my reputation had really already been cemented in people. And they all called me and they said, Jody, go sell whatever you want to retail stores. We'll ship it all to you. When you get paid, pay us. And I said, okay, thanks. And we're talking over 7 figures of merchandise, right?
Right. But they trusted you.
Yeah, trust. And so I started my business with zero money. All of my suppliers financed me because of my reputation, which is massive. And in the apparel business,
it doesn't happen.
It doesn't happen.
You know what the rate of return is when you have zero down?
No.
Infinite. It's infinite. Right?
Okay. Well, I was lucky. My dad's background, he was CFO. So I learned about finance and accounting. And I had, in Canada, we call it an RRSP. I think you call it something different there, Registered Retirement Savings Plan.
Oh, sure.
Oh, yeah. I
think I was 12 when I started, doing compounding into that. So I learned all that compounding, all that. So I was brought up, keep all your money in your company. Don't ever pay yourself unless you have to. Write everything off and love what you do and you'll be great.
Wow.
That was kind of the mantra. And then, but I dealt with every Sunday going to visit my grandfather, who was a very, accomplished man. And every Sunday he would say, okay, Jody, so tell me about your week. And the next sentence was, have you thought about going back to law school or med school?
Wow.
And it was really demoralizing. And one day I thought, what is motivating this? So I said, Grandpa, how much money do you think? And I named my other cousins who were doctors and lawyers. And he told me how much they made very proudly. And I said, so what if I told you I made 3 times that last year?
Mm-hmm.
And he never asked me again to go back to school.
Oh, wow.
Right? Never again. So I continued along that journey. And again, I started at my own company. And I had 7 offices. You know, it's funny where I am now. It's 32 years ago this happened. I'm still within 1 kilometer of starting my company. I had 7 offices. I won't go through the whole transition, but I was lean. I mean, I had my first office was a 10 by 10 spot in the back of someone's warehouse. Then I went to the next warehouse because they went bankrupt. Then I got another spot. My first 5 offices, I was shared. Okay? I didn't have the Porsche. I didn't have the marble. I didn't have all that. I didn't care. I was just hardworking, pounding the pavement, making it happen and socking my money away. I was a cash machine. And that's all I did. And then eventually the accountants and everyone said, like, you got to start buying real estate. Like, you know, Jody, you're going to make lots of money in socks and underwear. I was selling only stores at this time. And then I started to really talk about what, like, Walmart came to Canada, which really changed the landscape. And it wasn't as fun anymore. So what I did was I turned around and thought about what do I love doing. And at the same time, I was brought up in a family that did a lot of volunteer work. So we worked at homeless shelters, right? And I had this like one epiphany moment that changed my life. And I was doing a very high-end fashion show for a $300 pair of jeans company. And I was at the backstage and I met this woman in between models. And I said, like, hey, Mary, what do you do? And she said, I work for XYZ homeless shelter. And ignorantly, I said, oh, so like you volunteer and she said, no, I run the clothing room there. I said, oh, like, so you dig through those garbage bins in the parking lots and pull out clothing and distribute them to the youth. And she was so insulted. She said, Jody, I'm an employee. I actually have a job and I'm paid and I have to go shop for things like socks and underwear and things like that. And I said, oh, that's really cool. Tell me about that. And so she's told me a very long story about where she bought them, in which I said, Mary, I sold the socks and underwear to that store that you just did that.
Come right here. I got you.
Call me 80% less. I'll do it in a 3-minute transaction, not a 3-hour.
And cheaper.
And I'll give you terms. I'll give you 80% off. I'll give you donations. And she asked me if the goods were stolen.
Wow. And then you were insulted. It was like a
I was insulted. Yeah. So it was like blown away. And I did the first transaction. They called me. I sent them down, 1,000 pairs of socks. Gosh, and she was like, she sent me flowers and a thank you note and asked me if she could pay me quicker than 30 days. Right. So I was like, wow, this feels awesome. So I did it again. And then she asked me if she could tell other people about me. And then I asked her, like, what else do you need help with? And then the people in my company said, wow, like what a difference between dealing with someone like this and dealing with a major department store who wants to beat you down and beat you up all day long. So we tried to figure out how can you do more of what you like and feels good, but we couldn't make a living selling homeless shelters, right? Like they only call you when they need you. So yeah, so we kept kind of trying to do it. We re-engineered case packs and different things in our company. We opened up a promotional products division because they wanted volunteer shirts for walkathons or different events.
Sure.
We just kept saying, like, what else? Building the relationship. But while I was doing that, my staff and the people I was hiring and working with were just getting better and better and loving it more because I was giving them the opportunity to volunteer and do what made them feel good during work hours. Right. And when my mom brought me up, moms didn't work. They volunteered all the time.
Yeah. But
these days, most of us work. So if we can't volunteer in our workspaces, chances are
we're not doing it.
We're not doing it. Right. And now more than ever does the world need volunteers. So that was kind of the journey to where we were. And then it broke my heart as I helped charity after charity. And they would give me this crazy list of, I've got 1,000 guys I serve and I've only got enough money for 200 pairs of underwear.
Right.
So I went out to colleagues of mine in the business community and said, I got a problem, but I got a solution. Will you come to my warehouse next Saturday with $100 and don't ask questions? And they trusted me. And I got a bunch of CFOs in my warehouse and I brought a social worker in. She told a 15-minute story on what's going on. And we packed these amazing kits. And that's how my charity was born. It was just a love project. It was called Project Winter Survival. And I only became a charity because we were having such massive impact that lots of people who had high net worth wanted to donate and help, but they needed a tax receipt. They'd give me more money to help if I could get them a tax receipt. So we became a charity.
Let me pull back here, because there's a core value at the Uncommon Wealth Partners that we have that you just touched on, and it's the pivot, right? It's the pivot of, hey, I was doing something and it gave me great joy for a time, and then I pivoted, which is so healthy. Right. And I think a lot of people almost feel like they need to, or there's a shame there, there's a guilt there, but to pivot is like, if we're not changing and adapting, we're probably going to be stagnant at some point. And so the fact that you pivoted to this kits was so healthy from our perspective that a lot of people have trouble doing as they've poured their life into something over, a time for a long period of time. It's hard for them to pivot. And for you, I mean, it sounds like you just like, I see a need. It gets me excited. Let's do it.
Well, at the time that we pivoted, that you recognize, I still had my business. And the pivot was more of like a hobby,
right?
Because it was a charity. I wasn't making any money. It just felt good. And then it was kind of like my whole philosophy: if something feels good, you should do more of it, because then it's healthy, and then it's not work, or it's not onerous. So
I like that you pulled in other people to the community part, because then other people take responsibility. And then you get more excitement getting other people passionate about what you were excited about. Like, there's so many things that are healthy there.
Yeah. And people are so grateful. So then I learned in Canada, there's kind of like this famous bargain store. And this guy was called Honest Ed's. And he was like the largest bargain store. Imagine Century 21 in downtown New York City. Okay. So my favorite store in the world. So Honest Ed's was the Canadian Century 21. And he was also a huge philanthropist on top of it. And he was my mentor. And he taught me how to do business and how to do philanthropy. And every year at Thanksgiving and at Christmas, he had a turkey giveaway. And people would line up around the block who couldn't afford a turkey for their family. And he had a party. But he taught me this: Jody, do you think I buy those turkeys? No. I get on the phone with my suppliers and I say, guess how much business we did with you last year? I would like a check for such and such, because we are donating Christmas and Thanksgiving dinner to the less fortunate. And I'm counting on you to be part of that. Okay. So he taught me, and I have a process at the Bargain Scoop. My suppliers all know. They get a purchase order from the buyer in my company, and right after that, they get an ask. Thanks for that. By the way, my charity's happening twice a year, hoping I can count on you for XYZ. Okay. And I'm very clear with them. I support people who support me. It's laws of reciprocity. And I have a choice who I do business with. And if you and another guy have the same product, and even if you're nicer, if you're not supporting my charity, I'm going to support the guy or the lady who supports the charity, because we're aligned from our cause perspective.
Right. Core
but
values.
I'm transparent about it. Like, I'm not bullying them. I'm just saying, hey, this is the way it is. You guys know it. You have a choice. You don't have to deal with me.
Right.
So that's how he mentored me through that. So I started building up. I have an entire huge warehouse filled with donations. And it got to be so many, we couldn't give them away. Like, what a great problem to have, right?
Right.
So in our company, we started a loyalty program called the Full Circle Donation Program. And the deal was, every time a charity had a transaction at the Bargains Group, they got to open up this warehouse and choose a free case of donations that we would ship across the country. So suppliers loved it, because they could get rid of product that they had to maybe pay to go for landfill. Maybe it was a huge brand. They didn't want to end up in a discount store. Right. So I would quietly get rid of their stuff in an upcycling, environmentally friendly way. And for my charities, they're thrilled. And believe me, I'm not warehousing crap at Toronto real estate prices, right?
Right.
It's all gold. So that's been a huge thing. And if you're a human being and you just want to do a donation to a charity or your church, when you buy something for your program, you also get access to that warehouse.
That's really cool.
So we dealt that. That's become a huge thing for us. And then the last piece was about, I started winning about 15, 18 years ago, every award you can possibly imagine. And I had like the imposter syndrome. Why are they giving me all these awards up, with the president of Dell and the president of these massive companies, right? And I realized, because I was bold and I was not afraid to mix business and philanthropy, right? And as an entrepreneur, the really cool thing is nobody could fire me. So I could do whatever I wanted. But people actually thought I was crazy. They said, why aren't you building a $1 billion company? Why are you spending so much time on giving back and building and doing so much charitable work? And I said to them, why wouldn't I?
Right.
Like what's the
why aren't
number?
you?
Why aren't you? And what's that number for you that is success? Success to me isn't a bank account or an investment portfolio.
Right.
It's a 360 view of being proud and happy, and every day waking up feeling grateful, right? It's all about gratitude, and every day looking and saying, wow, look what I'm doing, and feeling good. So the last piece, what happened about 5 or so years ago, was I started getting calls off the hook from companies who said, my company is doing a corporate social responsibility event, or we're having impact day, or something like that. And oh my gosh, we can't find anything to do. No charity will talk to us. They won't take us on. We don't know what to do, but we found you through your charity. That's what we want to do. We want to build kits and do something. Can you help us? So of course I'm a salesperson. And if they were in Toronto, I'd say, come to my 2 events, Project Winter Survival in the winter, Project Water in the summer. It's $1,000 a head. You'll have a 5-star rock star philanthropic engaging experience. You'll never, ever leave after you've done it once. But if they were in another part of North America, they couldn't come. But they all had money. And I was like, this is crazy. I deal with charities all day long who are broke. And I've got people over here who are dying to help. I got to figure this out. So I created a social enterprise copying my own charity. It's all about ripping off and replicating, right? And I'm the best at doing this, so why not? And Kits for a Cause was born as a social enterprise just under 2 years ago. And within a year, and nothing but Google, it did 7 figures in its first year.
Jeez.
That's crazy. It's funny.
It's a matchmaking. We match charities and people who want to help causes.
Right. And it's great because the whole thought of not worrying about the profit is so foreign to many people.
Absolutely.
And I'm totally going to edify my son. He's 11 years old. We were talking about somebody winning the lottery. He was like, do you want to win the lottery? And I was like, oh, buddy. I was like, I want to say that I never want to win the lottery, because there is this thought process that if I have enough money, I will be happy. And what people find when they do win the lottery is they realize that money doesn't make them happy, and they're 10 times worse. And he looks at me, he's like, yeah, it's kind of like when you're thirsty and you drink salt water. And I'm like, who are you? Like, this is the most amazing analogy. Yeah. It's exactly right. But like when you find your passion and you're starting to pour out to other people, it drives other parts of your business. And now that's true satisfaction, when you get to serve other people at a bigger level and impact more people.
And I do, technically, I sit here and do volunteer work all day long. And, when I know we're taping this, but in March of this year, when COVID hit, I got a call from the government, and this was really cool. And they called me and they said, Jody, you're like the queen of supply chain in Canada. We need your help. There's this thing called COVID coming, and nobody knew. What's COVID?
Right.
And they said, so we're going to need you for the first 6 weeks because we've got no supplies in Canada.
Wow.
So we're going to need you to supply first responders, long-term care facilities, homeless shelters, and jails.
Jeez. How cool is that?
And I'm like, okay, cool. So can you explain to me what COVID is and what do I need? And they gave me my shopping list, and Bark and Jody went out and literally cleaned out the marketplace before the prices went crazy because nobody knew what was happening.
Brilliant.
And I pivoted again, and I'm really good listen, I've been in business for 32 years. I pivot all the time. And we became the sole source. Not only that, the government and all the bodies were advertising for us, sending everybody to us. Jeez. So for the first 6 weeks of COVID, I have an incredible team, and we were just morning, noon, and night. I had all my kids working, taking phone calls. We had people remote. So cool. It was insane. But you know what? We stabilized our country. And as Canada went, we did a really good job with COVID. And I'm very proud of what we did. Now, other parts of my business shut down overnight, but that's okay. Right? They've all come back. And now once, supply chain got stabilized, and I saw crazy stories that, I had bodyguards walking into warehouses with cash to try and secure product because it was so dirty, and people paying off, courier companies and people at the border.
Wow.
I was bringing in things from all over global. It was crazy, crazy times, but we did a great job, and my people were proud. And the people who weren't proud or really weren't invested, which I had a little, your B and C employee list. Great news. They left the company.
Right. They just couldn't handle it.
Yeah.
You couldn't handle it.
Let's talk through this because I think this is important. Like, it sounds like you're always going.
Always going. Yes.
How many children do you have?
5.
Right.
Wow.
How do you raise children and run businesses like you do and make sure that you're keeping all the plates spinning on the stage?
Well, there's no such thing as balance, right? I'm a juggler. I have a blended family. So 2 of the kids are mine. And then, 7 years ago, I left my husband, and I said, I'm going to go find my soulmate because I wasn't there. And he was a good guy, living but just we were in a very, what people call a boring marriage. So I went out to find my soulmate who has 3 kids. And now we're this unbelievable, Brady Bunch blended family. And it's just about, I'm really, really great at time management and figuring out how to connect, right? I am not the most present mother ever. In the last 6 months, I haven't been home. If I came home before 10 o'clock at night, my kids would be like, what's wrong? Why are you home? But I'm connected to them via text, via FaceTime. I've got 2 in university across the country. 1 just graduated. He just started with me a month ago, my oldest.
Oh, that's really cool. Congrats.
Proud of him and killing it, right?
Big kudos to you. Like, sometimes when we see people being so driven, their kids want nothing to do with the actual business.
Well,
because they've seen
I thought that. I actually thought that for most of them. And I have 4 boys and 1 girl. So my daughter, who's a little me, during COVID said, Mom, I got to get in there and help you. And I was like, wow, she never paid any interest towards my company and was on the phones. I'm going to do more orders than you, Mom. I'm really good, So she's right into it. My son's now here. And, tomorrow, for example, we're packing up orders for all the shelters because we can't keep up with the demand for Christmas and shelters. So I've got the other 3 in the warehouse tomorrow packing up orders. So even though they're not around, I'm that mom who delegates really well. I've got 4 boys who are hockey boys. We're in Canada, so hockey's a big thing here, right? So I'm usually at a rink 4 to 5 days a week. So what I do is I make sure that I have either a nanny who drives or people on the team who like me. And I always get my sons always driven to the hockey rink, and I show up 2 minutes before puck drop. I don't have an hour and a half to waste before, but I always drive everybody home. And the people know that, they respect that I'm doing the work, but I'm at every game. I don't miss a game. I don't miss, the nice thing is I can make my schedule. I can be where I need to be when I want to, but I'm that mom who flies in at the last 30 seconds. I'm never late, but I'm always just about late. But I'm present where I need to be. And before this call, I've sent a note to the family. I'm offline for an hour. I'm doing a podcast, deal with life. And my kids are really independent because of it, which is just awesome to see how they're coping with everything. But I'm not, I got criticized for my type of mothering. And for the first couple of years, I went back to work after 3 days of giving birth. Jeez. And in Canada, you get 9 months of maternity leave. After day 2, I was bored out of my mind. And I just said to my husband, look, this isn't working for me. They don't do anything for the first 8 months. I'm getting a nanny. I'm bringing them to the office. When the baby wakes up, I'm there. And when the baby's sleeping, what do I need to be sitting around? So I built a nursery for all my kids in my office. And A, it worked great for me. I got to do what I love. And B, my nanny was ecstatic.
Wow.
She was happy. She was with people all day. She wasn't doing laundry and cooking and doing nothing. So, but I got criticized a lot. Sure. And I think the big thing is not listening to the noise and going against the societal norm, which is what you guys preach, right?
A little uncommon.
That's the biggest problem, right? Going against what is common and becoming uncommon, it's lonely.
Right.
A woman on top of it.
Preach it.
Yeah, and I laugh because a lot of these women who badmouth me all the time, a bunch of them work for me now. Because guess what? They checked out for 10 years and went on, and then they were bored out of their minds. And then their husband said, Jody, can you hire my wife? And we joke about it all the time. They were the one, the Lulu, I call them the Starbucks chickie poos and all those girls, right?
Yeah. What advice, Jody, would you give to our clients doing entrepreneurial stuff? I think we're actually candidly in that space too, 7-8 year firm. And then Philip and I just read a book recently. It's called to Create, and about, weaving business and missions and charity together. What advice would you give entrepreneurs and to us, about, stepping into that and how to do it practically,
Figure out what you're passionate about and figure out, I teach people all the time how to leverage philanthropy and cause and kind of align it with your business. So for example, practical example, Kits for a Cause. When a company, say you called me and said, hey, we're really interested in doing this for our Christmas party this year. We'd really love to pack kits. And I go, great. So I tell you how it works. I tell you the model in 10 minutes. And then I say, you know what, Brian? I don't want you to just do this for this event. It's not like let's go axe throwing or bowling or build kits. I want you to build this in. And, I want you to call this the Uncommon Community Care Kit Program. Because once it's called a program, it's into your DNA. And then you can engage your staff or your clients to do it several times a year and just pick a different cause. Mm-hmm. But then the model's built in. So then you can market it from employee recruitment and retention, from client. I mean, listen, if somebody wants to buy a logoed t-shirt, they can go anywhere. But if they know me, I can even, not that I do, but I can charge them any price I want if they know what I stand for and what I believe in.
Right.
So I teach people, like, authentically talk about it. People don't talk about giving back. It's okay to talk about it. And if you talk about it, it's going to raise the bar for the people around you. And they're going to be like, it's almost like peer pressure. Wow, they're doing that great stuff. Maybe we should be. And you guys are in the States, we're in Canada, we're broken. There's no money, right? COVID's killing our economies. Who's going to pay for that? Sure, it's going to be our government. So we have to take back our community as entrepreneurs and business people. And we can do it. And let all that extra money from the government go back into healthcare and education and things. But we can do it. It's just a pivot and a flip. We're creating a Kits for a Cause, a movement of brokering goodness.
What those Kits for Cause, I just want to be candid. Like, what are in the kits so people can kind of get a grasp of what that is?
Sure. So, I mean, depending on what your cause is. So a lot of times it's Christmas coming up. It's cold outside. People are much more empathetic and compassionate about homelessness, right? Wherever you are. So at this time of year, it's usually like a winter warmth kit. So it would have gloves and a toque, and for those people in cold climates, and socks, and then all of a sudden, a tray of hygiene products.
For homeless people, right? Yeah. Correct? Okay.
Well, if that's your cause, but if it's cancer is your cause, or kidney dialysis is your cause, the contents are going to match what your cause is. We're doing senior care kits now.
That's great.
We can make a kit for any kind of cause. Alzheimer's, what are you passionate about? That's what's important, because if you're passionate about it, or really what I say to people is, forget you. What is your team passionate about? Because how many times have we said, oh, we're supporting, the Cancer Society, which is a wonderful organization, because our chairman's wife had cancer. Your team, I can guarantee you, companies aren't potentially passionate about what the chairman's passionate about.
Right. Yeah.
So we try and align. The reason I say put it into your company as a program is because then you can allow your employees to have a voice.
Yeah. Totally. And if there's somebody of our employees has a type 1 diabetic daughter, maybe that's it, right? There's passion there.
And there's through our process at Kits for a Cause, we offer really easy tools to survey your people. So the engagement starts from there, not from just packing the kits.
Right. Oh, that's really cool.
So it's really, it's really exploded. It's a movement. It's changing the way people do active philanthropy and volunteerism. People don't trust, right? Nobody trusts. So nobody wants to write a check anymore to a charity. They want to roll up their sleeves. They want to do something, What they won't tell you is they really don't want to do it for more than an hour because they have no attention span and they're really busy, but they want to feel like they've climbed Mount Kilimanjaro and cured cancer
together
in less than an hour for maybe like a couple $100, right?
Yeah.
So we figured it out. That's really what Kits for a Cause is.
I think,
cool.
I don't want to get political on this podcast, but I think it's refreshing to hear you say, like, we as entrepreneurs can solve this, and we are the best allocators of capital, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
Not the government, and the government can do good and all those things, but it's really on us to be on the front lines. And I think you're one of those persons, especially in retail, you're on the front lines of commerce and business and what's good and what's bad and what's selling and what's not selling. And to weave charity and mission work into that is incredible.
It's power. And we also do really cool stuff like disaster work. So when, there's in Canada a couple of years ago, there was this, you guys have lots of fires too, right? So when there's fires and you have to evacuate people, Bargains Group is the company that gets called by the Red Cross, the Salvation Army to deploy all the supplies.
Wow.
Because I have millions of dollars worth of inventory sitting in warehouses that I can turn over right away. And
how many employees do you have?
We only have about full-time, about 25.
Okay.
But we have a huge flex group that we can pull in at any time.
Right. I want to talk about something because I know that it's been instrumental in where you're at currently. It's your divorce. How did that shape who you were, who you are? And I mean, I would say, all trials produce endurance and character. I think at this point you're sitting on the other side of it. Like I'm better now than I was, but just I want to have a little bit of time just to talk about it for you and just to be able to kind of reflect on where you came from and how, you've had to come and overcome some obstacles.
Yeah. I woke up one day and I just said, and I'm really about always, growing as a person. Right. And I think if you're not growing, you're not doing any justice. So pivoting, growing. And I woke up one day and I just said, I'm not happy. And I was having some health issues and I'm a pretty energetic, happy person. And the doctor said to me, you're actually suffering from massive depression. And I said, you got someone else's file there. I'm like the happiest person everybody knows. And she said, no, Jody, you're the busiest person everybody knows. And then that was like life changing. And she said, you're gaining weight. All these things are happening to you. We've checked everything. There's nothing wrong. Think about it. You're suffering from depression. And I was like, wow. And then I thought about it and I thought, you know what? I'm kind of just putting that part of my life. I had a decent marriage. I have what most people have, a 6 out of 10, right? And I'm not a 6 out of 10 kind of girl. So I said, one of my life goals that I wrote at 25 was when I turn 50, I want to be with a partner that I want to spend the next 50 with. And I'm going to kill myself and work as hard as I can. And then once I hit 50, I'm going to start traveling and doing everything I really wanted to do, working still and doing more charitable work, but really enjoying. And I re-engineered my career. So when I started to feel that way, I started a new business. I do a lot of speaking. And I figured, here's a great way. Lots of families, you have kids, you're busy, you kind of separate, really common story. So you either quit or you try and get back together. And I'm not a quitter. So I decided, people want to hear me speak all over the world. They're going to pay me lots of money. Pretty cool. We can travel. We got lots of points for airline. Why don't I get 4 or 5 gigs a year and my husband can come along and we can rekindle this great relationship? And I put together websites and videos and did everything you have to do. And guess what? Got all the speaking gigs. And at the last minute for 4 or 5 times, he didn't show up. He canceled. Okay. Wow. And that was like an epiphany. So I thought about it. One day I woke up and said, this isn't cool. Called my best friend in Michigan and said, I'm coming to see you. I need a girls' weekend. I'm done. And she's like, what? Get it over here. So I'm getting ready to go. And the night before he says to me, I have a really odd feeling that you're going to come back and tell me that our marriage is over. And what do you say? Like, you've already heard from me. I'm not going to lie.
Right.
And I was like, shit, this is not the way I wanted this to go down. I'm like, you're right. We're done. Like, I'm going over to figure it out. So what started off as being like, hey, we can do this really great. I was like, I'll look after your investments. I'll plan everything for you. I'll do your laundry. Whatever you want, man. I'll do it for you. We got 2 awesome kids. Let's just make this nice. We had a prenup. Should have been the easiest divorce ever. And he said, yeah, no problem. I haven't been I get it. He was okay. Unfortunately, he had a very powerful, wealthy family who didn't like the fact that I held the assets. So they went after me for over 6 years and tried to wear me down. Crazy stories. And my poor ex-husband, who's a really decent guy, hasn't worked since. He's rolled up in a ball and he hasn't worked since. So they've destroyed his life because of greed and money. Okay. And I fought through it, and I could have very easily just given him half my assets. But even he said, Jody, you're the one who puts the food on the table. You're the one who's done everything.
Wow.
Like, and I wasn't fighting him. I was fighting a very powerful team of lawyers and people. So great news is when you're good and you work hard and you're a good person, good things happen. So I don't want to say I won because nobody wins, but I've kept everything, right? I have everything, no problem. And then I decided halfway through, I didn't leave this to be alone. I left this to find my soulmate. So I had to figure out how to date in between all of this craziness, right? And if you've ever been through a divorce, about 10 hours a day, I had a personal assistant. Her entire day was documenting crazy, right? And I found my soulmate online. Great story. And I never knew I could be so happy. And we got married just over a year ago, and we put the families together. I mean, I'm not going to tell you there weren't challenges, but now we wake up every day and say how grateful we are. And to show you, I've had my last 2 years have been my best years I've ever had in my life. Not only business wise, I've wiped out any debt I had from the divorce. I've moved forward. I feel better. I'm happy. Everything in my life is a 10 out of 10. I mean, COVID's really tough. But regardless, I'm grateful every step of the way. And when you're happy, and it's up to you to be happy, I always say nobody will make you happy. They're hard choices. And people who know my story, it was ugly, right? Police, bodyguards, crazy. They say to me, do you wish you didn't go through with what you did? I said, are you kidding? Look what I have. It was worth, I don't wish it on anybody. And if you can save your marriage, it's like an investment. You got to work on it, do it. But if you're not happy, get out. If you're not happy with your job, if you're not happy, how many people do I know that aren't happy with what they do, but they're getting so much money, they're terrified to walk out? You'll make double the money if you figure out what you love to do, right?
Love it.
So, you guys are the same. This is what you preach, but I'm just supposed to tell.
Kindred spirits.
Indeed. Jody, you are a rock star. I am so grateful we got paired up. And I'm so grateful that you're not only thriving in what you're doing, you're impacting other people. And that to me is truly uncommon. And the biggest thing for me about this whole podcast was just how important it is for parents and grandparents to instill these core values in people right away. Because look at how much you've been able to impact others by just the sheer advice of find your passion and grow in it and learn from it and start a business and try to figure out, be okay to pivot. But at the end of the day, let your gauge be your temperature and getting through what you want to get through. And so, wow, what a great interview. Thank you so much. I can't wait to keep in contact with you. And you've been listening to the Uncommon Life Project. I'm your host, Philip Ramsey.
And I'm Brian Dewhurst.
Tune in next time. Until then, go be uncommon. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.
That's all for this episode of the Uncommon Life Project, brought to you by Uncommon Wealth Partners. Be sure to visit uncommonwealth.com to learn more about our services. Don't miss an episode as we introduce you to inspiring people who are actively pursuing an uncommon life.